Welcome to the Fintech Scaling Show. This podcast is sponsored by Scale-Up Consulting, helping fintech startups create a scalable organization to support an ever-increasing demand. When you're ready to grow, reach out to us at richard@scaleupconsulting.co. Now, over to the show with Richard 𝗘𝗶𝗀𝗵𝗹𝗶𝗴𝗵𝗁, founder and host.
Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Fintech Scaling Show, where we talk to world-class operators and we get their insights as to how they are scaling up not only their business, but also themselves as they head towards their ideal scene, right? So I'm super excited to welcome Robin onto the show today. Robin is a Regtech Fintech financial service expert. He's been in the industry for a number of years. He's a founder, he's an executive, he's also worked in the corporate space. He works both in the APAC region and sort of Americas and EMEA. So super stoked, Robin, to welcome you onto the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Richard. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
Brilliant. And listen, mate, as I was getting ready for the show this week, and obviously our discussion is around leadership and control and communication, etc. I was thinking back to some examples of what a good leader looks like and what a good communicator looks like once they are able to both lead, communicate, and move their public to action. And nothing more than the word of Nelson Mandela rang through my brain. And if people that listen to the show know that I met Nelson Mandela when I was 12 years old, but and he had quite a profound impact on me. And I think it goes without saying that he didn't only have a profound impact on myself, but also on my country at that point in time, South Africa. And as a communicator and as a leader, I vividly remember him talking to a bunch of schoolboys who are 12 years old, and giving us a call to action, telling us at 12 years old, guys, because it was an all-boys school, guys, you have the power to choose, you have the power to decide, and you have the power to act. And I feel that that call to action spurred a nation into a direction and onto a path of reconciliation, and also inspired a group of youngsters to continue to have an affinity to a country, even to this day, right? And those call to actions I see now every day. I see call to actions not being used and publics not being shown the door of what to do next. So I'd like to know from you, as you are leading teams, as you are leading a public, how are you inspiring your public or your team to action, so so you can go towards your next steps and also take your team and obviously your public along with you?
Sure, that's a great question, and wow, I even prior to this show, I had no idea about this Nelson Mandela story that you just shared, Richard.
Yeah, I thought I'd lob that in. Because it was such an inspirational thing for me, and I think a lot of people out there can relate to that. They know Nelson Mandela, they can relate to it. But I mean, for him to still have an impact on my life as a leader is powerful, because the way he communicated, and we need more communicators like that, right?
Sure. So look, so on. In terms of, let me take a step back here and share with you, who's inspired me from the leadership perspective. And it's a little bit, how should I put it, different to to your story, and certainly to many other stories out there. I mean, the only person I met that was famous growing up was Jet Li, and that was at a like a fan event, and you know, I met him when I was 15 years old. That kind of had a profound impact on me because of the roles that he was playing on screen, which kind of takes us to who I grew up being inspired by. So one of the roles he played was this in a movie called Once Upon a Time in China, where he played Wang Feihong, who was a famous Chinese martial artist. And they made a movie about him. He was a what we call a master or a sifu in Cantonese. And he had a bunch of students, and so he had that leadership role about him. Okay, being a geek growing up, I mean, I majored in mathematics, computer science, and management. Other inspiring people for me were like Optimus Prime from Transformers growing up, Captain Kirk and Captain Picard from Star Trek. But you know, and
I like them.
right. I'm a total nerd here, right? But you know, taking that element and just putting it aside, if you actually watch a lot of these, you know, these three things, right? Once Upon a Time in China, Transformers, and Star Trek, and the type of leadership that is displayed by these particular characters, it is inspiring. These are lessons that we can take with us into the professional world. Okay. So going back to your question here, I think it really depends on your overall setting, right? The type of, well, let's back up here and let's ask ourselves, what is leadership, right? I think it's really important to boil it down to the fundamentals here. And so my interpretation of leadership, the best person that summed up that term for me was my my professor in business school, Steve 𝗘𝗶𝗀, rest in peace. He was a tremendous leader. So if anyone Googles this guy and looks him up, Steve 𝗘𝗶𝗀, CORIO, and his background, fantastic sales leader. He was head of IBM's sales program and for a while, and he taught the sales management class. And he told me, he told us in class that a manager makes you want to do something, but a leader makes you want to be somebody. Okay, so that statement has just been something that has sat with me throughout my career, my life, and something that I really feel that is one of those nuggets that we talked about that should definitely be shared amongst everyone. So when it comes to being a leader, there are two different, for me, there are two different elements, right? It's the type of leader you've got to be in a startup. You know, there's only, you know, 5-10 people in the company for the startups that I've put together anyway. You know, it's very hands-on. You've got to be on the ground. You've got to wear multiple hats, et cetera, versus the type of leader you have to be in a larger organization, like, for example, during my time at Refinitiv, Thomson Reuters, or any of those larger organizations, you have to be more, I think the term is presidential, right? It's a lot more hands-off, it's a lot more delegating, but you have to be the person that's the figurehead for sending those messages across, right? Or communicating to your firm. So that's how you do it, right? In terms of that inspiring, that like I said, make you want to be somebody element. I don't know. A lot of it is, I guess, a lot of it is that communication element, right? Showing that you're willing to listen, engage, and no matter who you are, right? Whether you're that guy on the ground or whether you're that presidential figure, right? I think it's important to be listening. You know, if we go back to very simple sales 101 training, right? They say selling is not telling, right? So your ability to ask open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions, I think is important. And so I do that a lot with my team. I'll ask an open-ended question, let them talk. I will, boil down the challenges or what they're happy with or what have you, just summarize all of that, and then play that back to them in bullet point form and saying, so you're saying this and this is what's happening, and this and this is what we're doing well, and then so we get that affirmation and know what to do after. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like it, and I think defining leadership. I think you're completely correct, and I think we need to go maybe a step further. It's just as your examples and my examples of Mandela. There's an autonomy and flexibility that leaders give, even if you are a 5 or 10 man startup, and definitely when you a slightly larger organization, you have to give your team, if it is your team internally, the autonomy and flexibility to rise up to the challenge, right? Because if in a startup, if you don't give your team the autonomy and flexibility to rise up to the challenge, you yourself, Mr. Founder or Mr. CRO or whatever it is, are going to be wearing too many hats, right? And the point of leadership is obviously firstly leading in a direction, making certain you have control, good control, but also allowing others to build up their knowledge and wear the hats that maybe you can't at a point in time. So I think autonomy and flexibility is important. And the other point here is making certain in all your communication, because I see it time and time again, but in all your communication, you give people a door to open, right? So what is that door to open? Okay, you've given a great keynote speech, maybe you've given a cool podcast interview, you maybe even it's as simple as you've had a really good team meeting. But what is that door? What is that next step that gets people up and starts moving them in the direction you want to move them in, right? What's their call to action? How do you evoke them to really push open that door and walk through? Well, you have to obviously tell them, guys, this is the door. This is the color of the door. There's a handle in it. Open it up. Because when you start doing that, right, I think you also you start controlling, in some ways, controlling the conversation and controlling the chatter. And I'd like to know from you how you have worked through different companies, different situations, to make certain that there is always a bridge. Let's call it a bridge or a door that people can walk through to make certain that they go that next 1%, or you sort of moving towards your sort of ideal scene.
Sure. So I mean, to use your example of a great meeting, right? One thing I've always tried to pull out of that meeting is what I mentioned earlier, right? The summary part, so that everyone's clear as to what was discussed and what was decided, some action items, and then to assign those action items to various members of the team, and so that they have ownership. Now, I don't believe in this whole slave driving mentality. Like, I'm going to give you task A, you're going to be held accountable for it, blah 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 blah. I would rather empower that person. Say, look, I'm going to give you this task. This is what I think you can achieve with it. If you have any challenges, please do not hesitate to revert back to me. I can work with you on it, or find someone to work with you on it if needs be. But I want to make sure that you are successful, and that we managed to achieve this because, you know, this task is important. And this is why it's important. You know, Simon Sinek, right, always break down the why. And these are the metrics or you know, what's the word, like these are the metrics or numbers that go with that particular task. But we can do this. It's a we thing, not a you thing, if that makes sense.
Listen, I think on a team basis, I think you hit the nail on there. Give them the support, give them the autonomy, the flexibility, empower you know, your team members to wear that hat. And, you know, if they make a mistake, okay, fine, as long as they learn and they continue to grow. And, you know, to jump out of a team situation and look at the public, because, you know, we out there as founders and executives, and, you know, let's be honest with ourselves. We also want to be able to, you know, sell some stuff, right? And I know selling is a bit of a, you know, no one likes to sell anymore, and I get it. But we do have to have the ability, confidence, and knowledge to be able to at least promote our product and or our services to our publics in a way that attracts ready to buy customers on a consistent basis, right? And you know, I believe that, well, you know, I do it myself, and I work with my clients. We use a simple method where we make certain that in each instance we have an attention getting opening. We don't talk about our product or services because no one cares about that. We talk about the problem, and we talk about how we can get towards a desired outcome. And then, you know, as I was saying about, you know, just as Mandela and, you know, your examples, that they had a call to action at the end. You have a call to action at the end. So there's a door, there's a bridge to go through that people can start engaging with you, right? And in that instance, because the public is difficult to control, in that instance, you start bringing an element of control into a conversation and into, when I say conversation, because a conversation can be a lot of things. It can be on LinkedIn, it can be on YouTube, it can be on email, but you start bringing that element of controlling, which allows you to then move forward and get these, you know, interested parties into a different environment, and most probably a one-on-one situation where you can have a proper conversation with them. And, you know, are there other ways that you have maybe used, or other strategies or tactics that you have you know, implemented to move your public along the path to good conversation around helping them?
Sure. So a couple of things on that. I mean, the first is vision, right? Who are you? What do you stand for? I think that is so important. I mean, so if I take the example of Napier, Thomson Reuters, Refinitiv, even my startups, right? They all revolved around the financial crime space. And for me, when I look at this space and I look at myself in this space, what do I stand for in it is really, really important. And one major, so one thing that I did was, number one, learn as much about the industry as possible. Number two, actually, you know, do a lot of doing, if that makes sense. Right?
You got to build, right? You got to build to learn.
Show that I am actively involved to the extent where, so if I take like one of the financial crimes, one thing that's considered money laundering, i.e. financial crime, is the result of human trafficking, right? So you know, especially in my part of the world, right? I'm based in Singapore, and if you look at some of the stuff that's happening in the surrounding companies, it's pretty bad, right? There's tons of things happening. So
shocking.
Yeah, so to really immerse myself, my wife and I, and this is before we were even married and with kids, we would go to Cambodia and actually take part in some of the volunteering to help out the victims, because I really wanted to be on the ground and really understand the industry as best as I could. Okay, from an education perspective, I try and upskill myself as much as possible. Now, I haven't had a chance to do it as much in the past 6 months. There's just been a lot going on in my life, but there was an extent up to the early part of this year where I was taking a LinkedIn learning course. I set myself a goal to do one a week, right? And that's just not in the financial crime space. That's in a whole bunch of other things. So if you go to my LinkedIn, you'll see the data, right, in terms of what I've been, the courses I've been taking, and how I've been trying to improve myself. Because you know what, you can always get better, right? I mean, that's some of the best leaders I've worked for in the past have been sportsmen or sportswomen, right? Sports is coming, and I love that mentality where, and it's very applicable to like sales or to trading or to these kinds of roles where you can never peak. You could always get better. So you could always sell more stuff. You could always produce a higher return if you're a trader. You can never peak, and you can always do better and better. And so with that kind of a mindset. Oh, and I guess it doesn't help that one of my other inspirations has been the Rocky movies as well. We're going to talk about a lot of movies here today, Richard.
Yeah, movies are good.
so that whole Rocky mentality, right, of being the underdog and just pushing yourself further and further and further to get better and better and better, I think is really important. As well. That being said, the other element that I think is important is credibility. Right. And so one thing I've tried to stay true to throughout my career is to express that I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at. And so, you know, if you were to ask me to talk about, or, you know, what it's like being for example, a compliance officer or an AML officer, and give training on these topics like compliance or AML, I don't think I have the credibility to do it, right? Because I've never been in that role. I've never been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. You know what I'm saying? So just stay true to yourself, I think, is another important element, career-wise and leadership-wise as well.
Yeah, I think you touched on a few salient points there. One is, you know, vision, purpose, and credibility, and all of these, you know, I guess, elements or components mixed together will allow you, when you are talking to your public, because you do have to talk to your public, will allow you to come across as empathetic. And you know, there's no game you have to play, right? You just be yourself. We're not going out there, and we're not to flog a say, we're not a used car salesman. We're out there actually trying to make a difference in people's lives. You know, you mentioned here, you know, some shocking stuff around, you know, trafficking and what have you, and actually taking the time out of your life to go figure out, you know, how you can impact and make a better world over there. And, you know, if that comes across when you're talking to a public, where obviously you're trying to sell a product and or a service, there's a direct connection, a direct correlation, because these folk will just automatically want to lean into you, because they can see that, you know, there's more to it than the tin. There's this knowledge, there's this person, and there's this thing that they actually want to engage with, right?
Yeah, totally agree. And yeah, like I said, it's all about what you stand for, right? And and who you are. That's to me is a major differentiator. And I noticed as well, you were doing that summarizing what I just said in bullet points. So that's great, by the way.
Thank you. No, because it is important. I mean, those things, vision, purpose, and credibility. We can bubble them up, and we can have different episodes on that. But they are important for. They're not just words, right? They should lead you as a founder and executive. They should lead you somewhere, and they should lead you clearly to making certain your public is call to action, is acting on everything that you are saying. And if you're able to do that, I think you can have a real big impact in not only your life, because it's ultimately it's not only about us, but it's about your ecosystem that you're trying to impact. And you can have a massive impact if you take time out, as you're saying, to go through that and think through it, get the knowledge, get the experience, and really drive your purpose.
Yeah, and so I just want to add as well. I mean, if you look at, I mean, let's take a step back here. We're here on a podcast about fintech, right? And if you look at the financial industry versus the technology industry, right? And we're bringing it together into fintech, right? And when we talk about, I mean, this ultimately does boil down to leadership. And I'm going to say something here, which again, this is just me being real, me being Robin Lee, me being who I am.
Yeah. But that's what we learned.
If the financial industry had all the right answers and was doing all the right things, which is impossible, but if they were, there would be no need for the fintech industry in the first place, right? And so in my very humble opinion, and this is just coming from someone who's worked both in Silicon Valley and Wall Street, right? So I think that's as fintech as it gets, right? If you look at the culture of the technology industry, a lot of it comes back to this, right? You can love them or hate them, but if you look at someone like Mark Zuckerberg, who's out there talking about connecting the world and bringing their loved ones together, he's not talking about, I want to sell advertising dollars and what have you. He's talking about the higher purpose, the higher the broader meaningful message, right? If you look at like Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs was always talking about you've got to start with the customer first and work backwards. Customers. He was a user experience Nazi, right? When it comes to making sure that the products, do what they do in the most user-friendly manner and easiest manner, right? Or even if you look at like Elon Musk, right? This guy's gone even one step further and wants to back up he wants to save the world. He wants to back up the human race on another planet, just in case something drastic was to happen to the current planet we're on, right? So I don't see anyone in the financial industry on this kind of a level, right? Talking this kind of a language or being as prominent from a leadership perspective, right? So
but it's an interesting point, and you're back to again, the analogies are purpose and making certain that people are following you, making certain that or trying to make certain that you have that following. You consistently getting your audience to act in each of these instances we've spoken about today. Jobs, Musk, Bezos, love him or hate him. Zuckerberg, love him or hate him. Mandela, love him. Sorry, I have to say that. They all have a purpose. They all had a greater purpose. One was to unite a whole country. Obviously, Elon Musk wants to do something slightly different, but great purpose, great vision, great leadership, and they had a following. But the same has to be said for those out there that are going out and creating new financial products and creating a new financial ecosystem. We need to be able to show people your purpose, and then as I said, we've already said it a number of times, people will follow that. So talk about the problems, get people towards understanding that problem, and show them that you can move them towards their desired their desired state, and do that on a daily basis. I mean, stop worrying about my ARR and all of this stuff, which I know is really important. Don't get me wrong, growth of the company is really important, but if you look at these 1% little incrementals you can make, i.e. maybe you have a YouTube channel, maybe you have a LinkedIn presence, and you posting it on there on these two channels, and you imparting your knowledge onto these two channels, which allows your public to scale up their knowledge, and at a point in time will allow them to lean into you when they actually want to buy. And I think this is something that again is what we all should be doing. We all should be wanting to share our knowledge so that an entire industry can move together in the direction it should be moving towards, right?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about how you can really take this to a not another level, but a significant level. So when I remember when I left my gig to go launch my first startup, so I was in Singapore. I just left the role that I was in then, and decided I was going to do a startup. And I had what I call my Batman Begins moment. So I don't even remember Batman Begins, where before he becomes Batman, he goes to some country, climbs up the mountain, collects the flower, and faces his fears, and does whatever, and then recognized that he was scared of bats, but faced that toxin gas or whatever made him see loads of bats, and he just ended up embracing it. So I had a similar experience with that and what I decided to do was go back to Silicon Valley. So at that point I hadn't lived in Silicon Valley for like 3-4 years. Decided to reconnect with many of the executives that I'd met either when I was working in the Valley or when I was on Wall Street. So when I was on Wall Street, I was an analyst covering Silicon Valley companies, right? So I was privileged to have met many of the famous executives that we see and hear about today. And one of my sessions was around Salesforce.com, and I was really inspired by Mark Benioff and his story. And one of the tips that I managed to pick up from him was this concept of integrated philanthropy. And so what I did with my first startup, which was also in the financial crime space, was I followed his model of 1-1-1, but I flipped it to 5-5-5. So 5% of my equity was owned by a charity. 5% of my employees' time was spent working on a charitable cause, and 5% of our net income. We didn't have any in the beginning, and neither did he, right? So we said, just do it. So went to a charitable cause as well. And what we did in my first startup was we made sure that charitable cause was aligned to our industry, and it was actually a charity that focused on the combating of human trafficking, especially. And this is shortly after I'd done that bit of voluntary work that I mentioned earlier, right? So I was really moved by it, and so we set the company up in that manner with an integrated philanthropy model. And when we got acquired, the charity got paid out for that as a result as well, right? So we felt we were doing a lot of good.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, there's some great examples of this. I think one that comes to my mind is the ex-CEO of Unilever has gone out and created something very similar, right? It's business for good. It's called Imagine. What's it called? Imagine One. And a similar vein to you, they go out there and they partner up with businesses, and this is more around sort of the climate crisis, right? And they're wanting to make certain that X amount of money or investment or knowledge is put into you know, creating a better climate and better sort of ecosystem for us to live in, and the generations beyond us to live in. So, you know, super interesting topic, and super obviously super insightful to make that sort of jump and that leap in a different direction, right? And what did you, out of that experience, what did you, you know, as an individual, what did you learn from it?
Oh man, I mean, okay, so this was 2013. So in 2013, fintech wasn't even an industry back then.
Yeah.
Regtech wasn't even an industry back then, and startups were certainly not viewed as sexy as they are today, especially in Singapore, right?
Yeah.
You were viewed as the guy that couldn't get a corporate job back then, right? And I don't know, maybe it's from my Wall Street days, where we were scrutinizing companies left, right, and center, so whether we were going to invest in them or not. So I decided to not just you know, run my startup ramen style, right? But even my lifestyle as well. So I went from living in a pretty nice condominium in the center of town to a room in a HDB flat in the outskirts. I was paying myself 500 Sing dollars a month, so that's about, I don't know, 350 pounds, 400 pounds a month, and eating hawker food every day. I had a kick scooter, not even an electric scooter like they got now, right? It's a kick scooter, and I was running around basically the central business district, just trying to sell my offerings to compliance officers left, right, and center. So it was tough, man. It was really tough. But you know, I wanted to put myself into position, you know, and again, I've been very inspired by media, by whatever. So you hear the stories of how Sylvester Stallone lived in this car for 2 weeks, sold his dog, and then bought his dog back when he was, you know, when he'd made it, quote unquote. You hear about Jennifer Lopez and how she had 3 jobs while she was a fly girl on In Living Color. So I figured, you know, if I can like put myself, if I can back myself into the corner, right? When you're backed up in the corner, that's when the magic happens. That's when you have to out innovate your way out of the situation that you're in. Then you know, I can make something of this company and the people within it. So that was how I was, my whole approach to it was, which is very different to now, right? We're in an environment where raising money is like really celebrated. I've heard about startup founders that are raising money and just going off and buying houses or flying around on private jets and et cetera, which I don't know, it's not necessarily something that I fully subscribe to. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you should, you know, go what I went through or even worse still. But you know, one thing we learned on Wall Street when we took external money was to, and what my boss at the time was saying to me then was, respect the capital, right? And so if someone gives you money, you need to be accountable for it and respect it and respect them as well, right?
I mean, you know, I always say, you know, in my business, also with my clients, it's important. Rainy days never too far away, right? So you need to respect is one thing, but you also need to plan accordingly, right? So you need to have you need to have different funds. You need to have a rainy day fund, and you need to have a fund that, you know, is going after different projects, and obviously a fund that is continuing with business as usual. Because when that rainy day does come, you know, you don't want to be in a situation where you are, you know, backtracking and having to sell things off. You want to be able to, you know, go on and push through it, right? So don't go out and you know, spend it all on you know, maybe expensive projects or initiatives. You know, think through what your core strategy is. I think it's the 80-20-10 rule, right? that comes to mind, and that's out of Silicon Valley. Make certain that 80% of your effort is spent on your current business, your current clients. 20% is on your future projects, and the 10% is maybe put away for a rainy day, right? So always consistently control that capital, control that flow, and don't ever overextend yourself, even if you are growing, even if you are in sort of that hyper growth mode.
Yeah, I'm not out there having like $10 lattes. I mean, I'll have them with customers, right? I think it's you do. Again, that's an investment, right? When you're there with customers. But when I'm out by myself and what have you, blowing money on that, like,
it's not,
or the 5-star Michelin restaurant, it's not really, it doesn't really align,
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And to wrap up the sort of the leadership conversation before we get into the flash round. Flash round's a bit of fun. What is, you mentioned some advice, and you mentioned obviously some great sort of nuggets and insights during the show. But what's the, for listeners out there and who are growing their business and who are trailblazing or starting to really expand, or even who are just starting to build and step through the process, what's the one or two bits of wisdom that you can impart that you think will really help them move forward?
People, are you referring to like newfound startup?
Yeah, startups, scale-ups.
Scale-ups, okay. Well, I would definitely say that that whole stay true to yourself.
Yeah.
It helps with the credibility, the integrity, from the credibility and integrity perspective. I would also say that, I don't know, to have a learning mindset. I think that's really, really important as well. So another inspiration of mine is Bruce Lee, right? And Bruce Lee didn't just learn one style of martial arts. He learned everything, took what was applicable to him, i.e. figured out what he was good at and what he was not good at and what was suitable for him, and then created his own style. Right. So I mean, I have the credibility to talk about programming because I started my career as a developer, right? But am I a good programmer? am I absolutely not. But I've got the credibility to talk to it because I've been there and I've done it, right? So I would say, learn and do as much as possible. And then last but not least is that whole mindset of resilience, of being able to, because it's never, and I'm sure you've heard this through many of your podcasts, right? It's never always smooth sailings. You're going to have your ups and downs, and your downs is when you go through those downs. That's the really challenging element, right? Where the pressure can really get to you. But at the same time, to me, that's where the magic happens and where you have to innovate your way out. So if you view them as, so when you do go through your downs, rather than viewing them as downs and ending up down in the dumps about it, view it as the challenge, and take that problem solving mentality to try and figure out how you're going to address that challenge and get over that hump.
Yeah, listen, some great nuggets of insight there. And challenges and downs and losses are part of the journey, right? You mentioned acquire knowledge, and tell me whether Andre Agassi or even Roger Federer were able to hit the ball over the net when they first picked up a racket. And if you say yes, I'll say liar. So try again, right? Until you're able to get towards your grand slam in this instance.
I think that whole journey is really important as well, right? Because look, getting to the top is tough, but even when you do get to the top, I think it's tougher staying at the top, right? And again, apologies for the pop culture references here, but if you go back to the Rocky movies, right, he didn't even win the first one, right? He didn't even win the first one, and then you have to go back to the drawing board, train up again, and then became world champion in the second one, and in the third one he got complacent, right? He got complacent, and then Mr. T came in and took him down. Everything after is, well, maybe the sixth one is okay, but everything after it goes into comic book territory, right? But I think the story of 1 to 3 is really, really important and resonates so much with startups, leadership, life, right?
I hear you. And listen, 100% I'm in tune with that. And now we go into the flash round. The flash round is a bit of fun. So we end the show on a high, and everyone walks away with a smile. What is the flash round? Flash round is, I ask you 3 questions, and just give me your response. And then you ask me a question, maybe a question you want to ask me, and I give you my response. So let's do it. The first one I'm going to ask you is, you worked on Wall Street, very interesting. What is the most famous Silicon Valley executive that you have met and worked with?
I got to hang out with Sheryl Sandberg once. I'd say it's a tie between Sheryl Sandberg and maybe Tim Cook. So I got to meet Tim Cook at a couple of conferences. This is when he was COO though, not CEO of Apple.
He's still an executive. Pretty cool. There we go. That's a good one. Then where do you, other than movies, where do you get your inspiration from?
So media in general, right? Whether it's books, music. So I grew up listening to a lot of hip hop when hip hop had meaning, and you want to talk empowerment, right? Look at the stuff that like Public Enemy did back in the day. Wow, so music, and people around me, right? I think it really is important that everyone recognizes that you are the company that you keep, right? And I grew up in Tottenham, right? And I definitely didn't want to surround myself with some of the characters I met, I grew up with in my corporate life, because a lot of them are either dead or involved in unscrupulous activity, shall we say. So those 3 things.
Okay, and the last one, bit of fun here: dim sum or fish and chips?
That's a tough one. Because it depends on what type of dim sum. So I'll go with fish and chips, because I don't get to eat it as often in Singapore.
Okay, awesome. That's good. And then over to you. What question do you have for me?
Sure. I mean, I would love to learn how you got the show started, and what inspired you to get this going. How do you become a podcast host?
Yeah, cool. So I have, I've had a journey. I put it this way. That started when I was, met Nelson Mandela to now, and that journey was the big thing was to have an impact on as many people's lives as I could do, right? And that's led me down a path that's been windy, a lot of different types of experiences, and it's ended up me setting up my business, 𝗘𝗶𝗀 Consulting, and then realizing during that I was having a lot of one-on-one interactions like we're having right now, but I wanted to have a bigger impact on the industry I was working in, and also a bigger impact on society. So I was thinking, okay, well, what can I do? How can I get a medium? How can I get a voice out there that allows me to really engage and then also educate others out there? And I thought, there we go. Let me do a podcast. Let me set up a podcast where I really focus on what I think is quite an interesting industry, financial services, and how folk are scaling up businesses to basically create a new financial ecosystem, which is, obviously going to impact a lot of people's lives across, if not everyone's lives across the globe. So I set up the Fintech Scaling Show to do that and really talk to founders, executives such as yourself, to get their insights, good, the bad, and the ugly, as to how they're scaling up, how they're taking their purpose towards their public and also towards their world. And I just got on with it and went live with my first show a couple of years ago, and ever since have been producing. Now I think I'm doing 5 shows a week and go live with roughly between 2 and 3 a week. So yeah, a long journey.
So 2 follow-up questions. Number one, why start with the podcast? Was it just happened to be the most popular medium at the time? And then number 2 would be, what's next? Are you gonna branch out into, I don't know, YouTube TV shows or something like that?
So why podcasting? The podcasting for me is a tool that allows you to create really impactful relationships, right? That's one thing. I'm a people's person. I go out there, I want to help people, and it's allowed me to create these and engage and connect with different people and create relationships, right? So that's the podcast side of things. And the other thing on podcasting, it's a medium that travels across multiple airwaves, right? You can do video, you can do audio, and then there's lots of different things you can do off the back of that. So that's why I chose it as a medium to kick off with. So what next is, interesting you say that. So we are in the process of, I am in the process of launching a book, which is going to be released in the next, before Christmas. And that's a culmination of my 2 years worth of podcasts and talking to great guests around the world and getting their insights. And what we're doing is we're launching that, now, and to give people meaningful takeaways that they can really pick up and use to sort of move towards their ideal scene. So that's the big thing that's coming out soon. And there's also a new virtual group that I'm in the process of setting up and launching in 2022 called the Mastermind of Scaling Up. So excited to invite you, Robin, and other execs into that world.
Yeah. So you're not doing anything on the metaverse yet?
That's next. No, I'm not. Yeah.
Right.
Not yet. Listen, we start small. We're going to sort out.
I hear.
It's going to be fun, right? I mean, we're here to listen, mate. Like everything, we're here to make. I'm here to make an impact. Here to educate and help folk through their journey, right? And that's what we're doing with the Fintech Scaling Show, and that's I can see the community we built up over time is just incredible. So more of the same next year. That's sort of my motto.
Fantastic.
Okay, mate. So, and listen, as we wrap up the show, how can people, if they want to connect and reach out to you, how can they do that?
Sure. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. So if you look me up, Robin Lee, you can catch me on my email as well. So robin.andrew.lee@gmail.com.
Brilliant. Okay, brilliant. And all those insights and obviously Robin's contact details will be in the show notes. So no need to rewind and try jot that down. It'll all be there for everyone to pick up and click on, and obviously email and or connect. For those of you that haven't yet subscribed to my podcast channel, now is the time to do that. Go to www.scaleupconsulting.com fintech.co.uk/media. Sign up and get the latest releases on a weekly basis from experts such as Robin. And let's go on this journey together. Robin, again, awesome to have you on the show today, and looking forward to your success. Awesome, mate.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. All right. Have a great day. Goodbye.